Good evening, everybody. I'm Michelle Lang with Operation Honor Rural Salutes. I am the founder and president, and we are a nonprofit that serves rural veterans and their families. So that's a little bit unique. I don't, to my knowledge, know that there are any other nonprofits right now that are really digging in and focusing on the rural veteran space. And we do that because I'm from a rural area in Pennsylvania. My husband is as well, and our story is a lot like many other people's. So he transitioned out of the military in 2019. Long story short, we couldn't find the support that we needed when we were at our home base. And that was pretty frightening for us and our family. And so we did something about it. He actually got back into the military because civilian life just wasn't his thing. So we are down here at Fort Liberty, formerly Fort Bragg. And that is when in 2021 we decided to start a nonprofit. At the time, it was to find all these local resources that anybody can access. They can dig into the resources that are in their backyard, and go seek the help that they need instead of relying on larger organizations that might be overwhelmed. They can get help a little bit quicker because that's what I wish we had. And in doing this, we realized, we're kind of boiling the ocean. And there are a lot, I mean, there's 44,000 veteran focused nonprofits out there. So how do you differentiate? How do you sift through all of them? And how do you make it manageable and digestible for everybody to use and update that and maintain that? And so we're really, thinking how we do this. But the turning point was whenever we hosted a event for rural veterans back in my hometown, and we geared it to rural veterans and rural communities, because in these rural communities, gosh, they're so supportive and they're so appreciative of the military. But what we found is when veterans come home to these rural communities, is really, really isolating. It's not as simple as maybe an urban area where there's veteran meetups or there's, pickup basketball or things like that. In rural areas, there's not much to do. There's not much going on. It's a slower pace of life, and people move there intentionally for that reason. So why can't they move there into these communities that are so super supportive and feel the support? It's an odd thing knowing that you're supported by so many people and feeling so alone and isolated. And that's what a lot of people struggle with. So, what we did was completely dug into rural America, rural veterans, and their spouses with a long-term vision of supporting them, bringing them resources where they can get, access to entrepreneurship resources, to financial literacy, to get their benefits questions answered, homesteading, holistic therapies, mental health, peer-to-peer, a whole variety of resources that are available to rural veterans and their spouses that they can use to feel supported, to feel empowered to be successful where they're at, and hopefully become, mentors in their community, to become pillars of their community and the change that drives within their community. As many people know, right now, our military is sort of going through, I don't know if you call it a crisis, but people aren't signing up the way they used to. Our recruiting numbers are really, really low. And I don't know, there's a lot of speculation why that is, but the military is really a beautiful place to form friendships, get discipline, get all sorts of leadership skills. I mean, the military really invests in its people, particularly in leadership. And it needs to be a little bit more mentored within these areas like rural America that supports our military, how they can join the military, how they can be examples for the younger generation. So there's a whole lot of factors that we consider going into this nonprofit and the work that we're doing. And one of the ways that we are working on doing that is partnering with other organizations. We fully recognize that this work can't be done alone. And like I said, there's 44,000 nonprofits out there that are working towards very similar missions. And recently I read, I don't want to get the statistic wrong, but it is the nonprofit sector, I think, is the third largest sector driving change in America, behind manufacturing and something else. But anyway, the nonprofit sector is huge. It's a big deal. It's filling a lot of gaps. And we're trying to fill the rural veteran gap because we believe that it's been very overlooked. And rural veterans, they really, I believe, they're the heart and soul of America. Rural America is very precious to me. That's where I think some of the best people come from. And it can be really intimidating to go into these areas whenever you are not rural yourself, or you maybe look a little too fancy for the area, or I don't know. Rural America has a special place in my heart just because they're going to tell you like it is. And every place is a little bit different, right? Like here, we live in North Carolina, and I've definitely got the oh, bless your heart, which means something totally different in rural Pennsylvania. But that's okay. They're just salt of the earth people, and because they are do-it-yourselfers and self-sufficient doesn't mean that they don't need help and support. As a matter of fact, they are the ones that grasp at the support and resources, and they utilize them if they know that they're available. But a lot of rural America doesn't have the funding to really reach these areas the way that they deserve. America is a huge place. So what are we, Operation Honor Roll Salute, trying to do about that? How are we tackling this problem? And the answer is pretty simple. It's with partnerships, very intentional collaborations, and vetting of resources. So our first pillar is our resources. We want to make sure that we have good vetted resources on our site that we can direct people to, and not an overwhelming amount, because that's the issue. Think about whenever you are really, really stressed out and you need help, how difficult it is to sift through links and links and links of different resources without, any guidance. So, our first pillar is guiding people to these resources and letting them know that they're there. Our third pillar is, our second pillar is our online community. So we've created the first ever rural veteran online community. And what that is you create an account. It's very similar to a Facebook group. And you create an account, you join, and then you can join the general forum. And then from there, there's subject matter experts in the group that can talk to you about, real estate, VA loans, homesteading, exercise and nutrition, your benefits. So a variety of different things that people may not think to ask about, but um, bringing that awareness and then having answers from experts, that's a pretty big deal. And then we will be hosting live webinars in there as well. The third pillar is our in-person events, where we basically throw celebrations for rural veterans and their families and the surrounding community, to be able to learn how to better support rural veterans, have rural veterans see that there's support available to them, and just have a good time. We bring in musicians, band, speakers, food trucks, veteran resources, craft vendors. We do a date night and a golf tournament. So there's a lot going on, but we really want to show our appreciation for rural veterans and their families and the communities that support them. In a little bit, oh, there's Nick. Can you hear me, Nick? Okay, Nick is coming on here in a second. He is our board, one of our newest board members. There you go. How are you?
I made it. I made it. Had to find a new had to find a new location. So I'm live here in Pinehurst. I'm sitting outside the amazing Harris Teeter. Good thing about the South is it's never too cold. So thanks for
Oh,
having
that's
me.
true. Yeah, well, thanks for coming on. So, for those who don't know, this is okay. So, I am so glad that I got your pronunciation right, because that was not on my bingo card there. Nick Vandre, right? Am I saying that
Got
correctly?
it. Yeah, you got it.
Oh, okay. It's way cooler than what I thought. He is one of our newest board members, which never thought to ask how your name was pronounced. So shame on me for that. But
It's okay.
he is a newly 20-year retired Army veteran out of North Carolina. And your superpower is driving strategic partnerships and innovations. Nick has a really creative way of thinking, and I would say like an out of the box thinker. You just see things in a different way, and I really appreciate that about you. That's really your strength. So we are very, very glad to have you at Operation Honor Roll Salute.
Well, yeah, thanks for having me. It's an amazing opportunity. You had amazing vision. And I also grew up in a rural community in southeast Wisconsin, and so rural is what I know, and even now live in a rural community. I think it's the best kept secret in America, honestly. But we need to find ways to better support those people living in those communities, and I think this nonprofit's the way to do it.
Yeah, I rural America is there's definitely like a revitalization that's starting to happen right now. I think, especially with people that, I mean, COVID did a lot for this country, good and bad. But one of the things that I saw come out of that is people looking to move to their own piece of land and kind of get away from people. Cities were feeling a little too peoply, I guess. And all these people are moving to rural America, but they're not rural. And so there's kind of like a cultural mesh that needs to
Mm.
happen in these areas, but it leaves a big opportunity for rural America to blossom. And I think that we can really help be a driver of that with empowering rural veterans to take advantage of all these benefits that are available to them that are going unused.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's as you pointed out, I think one of the biggest contributing factors I can bring to the board is the collaboration piece. And when you look at rural America, well, you look at the people, right? It's really about you know taking I think a different approach to an old problem, and trying to find new pathways. And in the digital age that we live in, we're more connected than ever. I think we just need to think differently about the problem. So I often like to think of people as puzzle pieces, right? Little multi-dimensional puzzle pieces as we do problems. And each person deserves their own approach. And I think in what the nonprofits doing and the other organizations that are collaborating with us, we'll be able to find a convenient solution.
Yeah. I mean, collaboration is going to be a big piece of this to be able to, because one nonprofit, I mean, we can do it all, but we have to have help, right? So collaboration is kind of the key to do it because there's so many great resources out there that are doing really phenomenal work in the mental health space. In the, uh, I mean, mental health is the biggest one, but I think that's the most underutilized tool for a lot of these rural veterans because they don't know that it's available. There's just so much that they don't know that's available. So, how do you envision collaborating with these different partners, community partners, whether it's government organizations, other nonprofits, to kind of drive change?
Yeah, absolutely. It's all about alignment, right? So every organization, every individual has their own interests, right? Their own aim points, and it's really about being able to break down those barriers and build new bridges. And I know that sounds quite altruistic, but it's true. And in the day that the data shows, and in the world that we live in, that it's about alignment. And I like to think of it, this is like Pareto's principle, right? It's the 20% of builders that will support the 80% of buyers, and the door is always open, I like to say. So if you're one of the organizations out there listening today, whether you're working in academia, industry, capital, or government, reach out to us. We're looking for more partnerships. We're looking for ways to break down those barriers, find interchanges and intersections around old problems. And I think it's our relentless pursuit and our promise to uh, the rural communities in America, that there's people out here who care. And so, if you find yourself kind of in that same cycle, creating those same limitations, allow others to help you. Right.
Mhm.
Sometimes the hardest thing to do is ask, but I've learned that when you allow yourself that uh, that permission, there's solutions out there.
Yeah, for sure. I think one of the most unexpected joys that I've found doing this is showing other nonprofit organizations or other companies that are not rural minded, that's not where their focus is, how they can impact rural America with what they're already doing if we just, shift it a little bit. Because the light bulbs start to come on. What I want to do with this is be able to drive traffic to these other nonprofits or other organizations that are already doing the good work. But I mean, we all work together and we're not a mental health resource. We're not, real estate agents. We're not all these things, but we can drive rural veterans there. We can support them with community, with information, and then we can show these other corporations and nonprofits how they can support rural America, which is really supporting America. And that's what a lot of people want to do. Um, and that's just been really exciting to me because some people are just like, what do I have to do with rural America? I'm like, well, more than you think. Here's what we can do to just maybe change your messaging a little bit or change your programs a little bit. And that's been super fun for me.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think one of the biggest differentiators, I like to say that here we are in 2025. There's a lot of changes going on. Oftentimes, we move so quickly, we lose sight of the bigger picture of what we're trying to do, and you have to really apply an empathetic mindset to think of, how is what you're doing as an individual organization trying to help, um, in this, particularly in the rural community, right? And what could you do to help other organizations around you Um, because honestly, it's a bigger metric than your own that we need to start thinking about together.
Hmm. And a lot of people think, that why should I help rural America? And I mean, the answer is there's just so much untapped potential there. So why would you not want to? I mean, our country was built on rural America, literally. That's where we sprung from. And I love the people. I really do. They're my kind of people, and they're not for. It's just a different way of life. It's not for everybody, but it is for a lot of people, and a lot of people are really, really just racing towards that. But I've also talked to a lot of veterans who say, I really would love a piece of land, but I'm worried about my VA appointments, and I'm worried about this and that. And it's like, well, don't like, how can we help? Have you heard of community care? VA has telehealth. What are you lacking right now? Because I'm sure we can connect you with it, and you can get what you want where you want. Um, and being able to give people their dream, I guess, is super rewarding.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a two-way street too. When I think about this, and I think about, you know, the care maybe that, my dad didn't get that he needed, right? In where we lived out in the country. Um, there's a value and a voice that we represent to the people. But I think there's also an opportunity where organizations like ours also can help government connect who may feel um isolated from rural America as well. Like you said, some people who live in cities, some you know government agencies may feel that they don't understand their customer, if you will. And so how do you enhance value? It's some organizations like ours, nonprofits that serve that a very functional role in assisting, not only government but also um, our community. So but it's also to be protected, I think, too. I know I love rural America. I think it's, like I said, I think it's the best secret in America. Um, and I don't want it to turn into a big city, right? So I don't want all the land to be bought up, I don't want the culture to change because it's different. It's absolutely different.
Yeah, and that's what makes it special. And I think there's certain qualities and characteristics about people that live in rural America, and I think that's what makes it tough in some cases. Uh, and I talked to a lot of people who have tried to market to rural America, and they're just like, "Wow, it's just different. Like it's different." And yeah, if you're not from that area, um, you are kind of like an outsider, and you really have to meet this demographic where they're at, and then you couple that with being a veteran or a military family, and there's another layer of like, oh, what are you trying to sell me here? What do you like? Skepticism, right? And so how do you meet them where they're at, and how do you start building trust between them and the organizations that are trying to serve them? And I think the answer is really simple. Is just meet them where they're at, literally show up and say, here, these are the things that are available to you. Go do it yourself, because they want to do it themselves. And that's totally fine. But if they don't know what's available, then nothing's ever going to get done. And you just kind of like fall into that hopelessness feeling. I also talk to a lot of people that they just don't have people to relate to in their area, you
Mm.
know? And they don't even know, like at our event, last year now in June, some people didn't even know that their neighbors were veterans. And so there's just this really type of keep to yourself and keep your head down and work type of mindset, which is fine. But I do know that they are very resilient, and uh, I want to say stubbornness, but I know that's a negative word. Their determination is an asset if they just know what's available to them.
I agree. Um, you know, I think there's an expectation when resources are put through certain channels that they reach everybody, and I think we need to. I think we need to do a better job as well, understanding that there's a lot that these I know I'm just going to speak personally. There's a lot that our family went through, and still go through, and sometimes we create our own limitations, and the organizations like ours and others, I think keeping that empathetic mind and understanding that of why we're doing what we do and the appreciation it brings, that we need to continue to um try try to reach them through other channels and continue to measure and manage the process and improve upon it, right? It's this is There's no end state, right? This is never finished business. So it's just a way of living, and ensuring that we're continuing to improve. And I think that would probably be one of the greatest pieces of work for the nonprofit, is to figure out how do
Welcome
we
to
measure our
Energy
impact, and then
Reconnects,
how do we
where
provide
voices, information,
transparency
and
reporting to all that.
resources are
Mm-hmm.
empowered
Yeah.
intentionally.